In this session, we're going to talk about the marketing planning process. And it's wise to start with the definition. This one's from MacDonald in 1999. Here it's suggested that marketing planning, is simply a logical sequence and a series of activities leading to the setting of marketing objectives and the formulation of plans for achieving them. So essentially it just bubbles down to setting marketing objectives and then devising plans to achieve the objectives. So that's what the marketing planning process really involves: setting the objectives and then trying to achieve the objectives. The focus of marketing planning is primarily concerned with the creation of competitive advantage. The business operates in an environment in which there are probably competitors. It's generally the case that in most market sectors there will be some sort of competitive environment, and it's important that the company tries to gain a competitive advantage. In other words, outcompetes the competitors. Now this could be done in a variety of ways, by setting a price which undercuts the competitors. It may be done by very smart marketing techniques. It may be done in a variety of ways. But the focus of the marketing planning part of the routines of the marketing section. Marketing planning is to try to create long-term competitive advantage, to ensure that the business goes through time in a way that outcompetes the competitors, outdoes the competitors, gains the competitive advantage and maintains it. Marketing planning is the identification and allocation of resources to achieve marketing objectives. So having set the primary concerns, having set the objectives, what the business is aiming at, then it's important to identify the required resources and to try and allocate those resources to achieving the objectives. So point number 2 here is getting the resources necessary to achieve the objectives set in the first point on this slide. There is a greater need for organizations to adopt a systematic approach to the market. This is due to changing market conditions, the changing pace of technology and uncertainty in the marketplace. So it's important that the business has a very clear picture of what it wants to achieve. It should set out realistic objectives and then allocate the resources to achieve those objectives. The objectives themselves should recognize that the environment in which the business is operating is changing. It's changing because of the onset of technological change and also globalization and changing government policy and just the changes that are happening in society as well. So for various reasons it's important to set out the objectives and then earmark resources and allocate the resources to the achievement of the objectives. Marketing planning is a management process, and the end result is the development of a marketing plan. The purpose of this plan is to provide a detailed analysis of future opportunities and customer demands. So it's a management process. Marketing planning is important for the business, and it's taken on by the management section of the business. So personnel within the marketing department will be involved. Required information from the market will be collected. Some research will be done, The ideas will be written, discussed, criticised, altered, amended, changed, etc., until eventually the management is happy with what they've got as a marketing plan. And the marketing plan, as I've said earlier, is to achieve specific objectives and will require some resources. So it's a logical sequence of activities aimed at achieving long-term goals and objectives. It's been logical. It's looking at where the business is currently and where it wants to be, how it's going to get there, how it's going to gain competitive advantage, how it's going to deal with the competitors, how it's going to deal with the changing environment in which it finds itself, the changing technological and legal and sociological environment in which it operates. How is it going to deal with those changes? And how is it going to maneuver itself to achieve its long-term goals and objectives? The marketing process requires a planning system where a range of options can be identified for the organization, developing marketing objectives which are in line with organizational objectives, costing and implementation process. Now it's important that the marketing planning system meshes in, fits in well with the overall organizational objectives. The business will have a business plan. The business plan is perhaps to innovate the product, become market leader in a particular section and increase exports or whatever. It'll have various objectives which it will have carefully refined and discussed and agreed over a longer period of time. But part of that will be the marketing plan. The marketing plan will aim to achieve specific marketing objectives. For example, increasing the profile of the product in the market, identifying new niche markets, identifying segments of the market which are currently perhaps underperforming. It will look in detail at the performance of the business or the performance of the product or service in the market and try to improve that. And that, of course, in turn fits in with the business plan or the wider objectives of the business. So it may be possible to view the marketing planning process as a subset of the wider business planning process. Although some people would see it as having its own integrity and its own importance. And certainly marketing planning, the marketing planning procedures are very important to the business to ensure that it's achieving its targets in the market and it has long-run viability. Piercy in 2002 describes the marketing planning process in 4 stages. There's the corporate or strategic planning stage, where corporate goals, corporate mission, corporate constraints are all looked at, and a consistent and a coherent plan is worked out to try and get some sort of strategic plan or corporate plan, and that strategic plan is the long-term plan of the business, where it wants to be in the long run, but it should also guide the short-term movements of resources and the short-term planning system of the business. So the long term is where the business wants to be. The short term is what it's going to do in the near future. Now the strategic marketing plan, as opposed to the corporate or strategic plan, the strategic marketing plan, it looks at areas such as segmentation, competitive comparisons, internal analysis, SWOT. In other words, the marketing planning, the strategic marketing planning framework is dealing with very specific topics, trying to improve the performance of the product in the market, looking at competitors, looking at strategies and the strategies of competitors, looking at the internal strengths and weaknesses of the organization and what it can do. So it's getting a much more long-run marketing idea about the business. What can the business do in terms of marketing in the long run? And that's not as wide as the strategic planning, which was looking at wider objectives, looking at investment, looking at capital, looking at marketing, looking at HR, looking at training programs, looking at where it wants to be in the future, where the whole business wants to be in the future. The marketing planning, strategic marketing planning, is much more focused onto segments, competitor analysis, and so on. The marketing plan, which is derived from the strategic marketing plan, the marketing plan looks at much more practical considerations. It's moving towards looking at marketing programs, how particular programs can be designed and delivered, how the business can look at the competitive situation in which it finds itself and try to devise strategies to outmaneuver the competitors and get itself a good reputation in the market and a good long-run position. So the marketing plan is derived from the strategic marketing plan. The strategic one talks about where the business wants to be in the long run in terms of its marketing plans. The marketing plan itself is much more, in a sense, operational. It's moving towards the doing end, the here and now, and doing doing what is required to achieve the short run, which will help it to achieve the long run strategic ones. And finally we get to implementation. This is when all the planning has been done, and now it's a question of implementing the plan so as to achieve the outcomes that were anticipated. So looking at sales management, alliances, when companies have relationships with other companies to promote itself in the market, looking at internal marketing, looking at the strengths and the weaknesses of the organization, and looking at the possibility of developing in-house procedures that will enable it to identify clearly what its advantages are and what its disadvantages are in relationship to the product, and then take it to the market and try to play down the problems and play up the advantages. But implementation is putting into action the marketing plan, actually doing it as the word suggests. Now let's look at the corporate strategic planning for a while. The strategic planning process outlines expectations, mission, objectives and goals. It identifies the purpose of the market plan and what will be achieved. So strategic planning is dealing with very broad concepts: where the business wants to be, the type of product, the type of market it wants to operate in, what it wants to achieve, what percentage of the market does it want to achieve, what are its objectives, what's it trying to achieve. So it identifies the purpose of the marketing plan and what will be achieved. Goal setting is important at this level. There needs to be goals that give direction of what needs to be achieved in sales, market share, profitability, cash flow, and in a specified time frame. So it's important that the idea of, let's say, increasing sales, or the idea of increasing market share, or the idea of increasing profitability, or whatever, these concepts, there should be figures now allocated. They should be given a little more importance, and they should become more specific. It's important that just to say increasing sales, well, that's a very vague term. Increasing sales could be a very small increase in sales. So perhaps the use of figures may concentrate the minds more and say sales must grow by 20% in the next year or the next 5 years or whatever. Now, the 20%, that will focus minds, whereas increasing sales is vague. Just, we will increase sales. Well, that means sales could go up by 1%, or sales could go up by 50%. It's just increasing sales. It's a very vague concept. Market share will improve. That's a vague concept again. What does it mean? Market share will improve. Well, it's very difficult to define, but let's say a figure was allocated. Again, it'll focus minds. If the figure is market share will grow by 1% in the next year, or market share will grow by 5% in the next year. Now this is firm. This is an issue now. There is a target, a specific target to aim at. Corporate missions identify the product market, and when we talk about corporate missions, we should consider the following. Customers. Who are the customers and how will they affect the marketing plan? So it may seem an obvious question, who are the customers? In a sense, the customers are the people who will buy the product. But there's another layer to this question. Who are the customers in terms of their aspirations? Perhaps they're not existing customers, they are potential customers. There are people who are hanging back. They're not buying the product, they're not interested in the product because it's not appealing to them. It has to be, they have to see the use of the product. And for that to happen, the business must make extra efforts to bring the advantages of the product to customers or potential customers, people who may become customers but who are currently not. It must bring the potential of the product to their notice. And when the full set of customers are identified and the strategy, the marketing strategy has been worked out to accommodate existing customers and these potential customers, then how will all of this affect the marketing plan? Will the marketing plan need tweaking or modification as a consequence of this perhaps expansion in customers? And also products. Selection of products that are relevant in the competitive marketplace. The business may produce many products. Some of them are not that successful. So to what extent should the business focus in on the products which are most successful? To what extent should it engage in further research and development and looking at the long run prospects for the business in terms of product innovation, new ideas for new products, related products, but new ideas? And to what extent can the products be kept contemporary with the changes in society? Customers are changing. There's more information around because of the internet and because of information flows in society. Customers are more demanding, and the product life cycle itself is shortening because new products are coming in. There's a more competitive environment. There's globalization. There's the possibility of products from overseas. So the issue here is that the products themselves, the products of the business, must be up to date. They must be attractive in the current market, but also have the capacity to run into the future. at least as far as necessary to give the business the opportunity to innovate and introduce new products and continue in business. There's also the issue of geographic boundaries. What are the key geographic boundaries? Well, it depends on the nature of the product. If it's a physical product which is quite heavy, a lot of mass to it, or it's quite big, then the chances are geography will play a part. People don't want to carry large products around, and there is a logistical issue for the company to move quantities of large products around. Whereas if it's a service, then the geographic boundaries may be different. So it's important that the business is aware of the geographic limits to its activities. It may want to extend its reach, but it may require opening subsidiaries or opening offices elsewhere, or open outlets elsewhere to try and increase its reach. But of course, as soon as it does that, there is a problem of control and there is a problem of linkage, making sure that the various parts are connected and run as a single entity. It's pointless if they end up starting to compete with each other. It is the same business after all. The strategic direction, well, what are current market conditions and how does the organisation intend to grow? Well, knowing the current market conditions is a function of mostly the marketing department, who will have to do research in the market, will have to become aware of customers' needs and customers' aspirations, and also what the competitors are doing, what products are there, the degree of competition in the market. And it needs to feed this back so that the business can decide long run what to do. Should it continue in that market making these products, or should it innovate, change the products, change direction slightly, aim at something new? Or perhaps the marketing section have been fortunate enough to spot a niche in the market which is currently unsatisfied. That means there is the possibility of high sales because the niche is currently not occupied by the activities of one of the competitors. But certainly it's the case that research needs to be done, information needs to be collected, data needs to be collected, I suppose, better way of putting it, and then the data processed into information through analysis, and try to make it as objective and straightforward as possible. All of the issues surrounding data collection come into play at that stage. Strategic marketing planning. Well, strategic marketing planning phase is the largest and most time-consuming stage. The organization's resources and capabilities are reviewed, current market conditions and competitors are considered within the marketplace. So this is the starting point, and it seems difficult. It's difficult because a lot of data has to be collected in the market. Who are the competitors? What are they doing? What are their plans? What's their product? How successful do they appear to be? What prices are they charging? What's the functionality of their products? What's the design? There are many issues just to pick up on the competitors alone. Then the product itself, the product from the business, how is it being received? What are the sales trends? Is there seasonality? And how well does the product perform over the full cycles? What prices can the business charge? There are many issues that need to be picked up. This is a time-consuming activity, trying to figure out what's in the market at the moment, what are the the current market conditions, what are the competitors like, what is the competitors' stance regarding competition. So it's a very detailed analysis that's required. It requires a lot of data, a lot of contact with the market, a lot of research, and then the analysis of that. Strategies are formulated to overcome barriers. Internal and external audits are used to paint a picture of current market conditions and the organization's resources and capabilities. So, first of all, strategies must be formulated to overcome obstacles. I suppose that is the real function of a strategy. The strategy is to anticipate problems and get round the problems, to deal with the problems. If there were no problems, then I suppose we don't really need strategies to any great extent. It's a straightforward exercise if there are no problems. But there are problems. The problems are that customer tastes are changing. Competitors are innovating their products. Government regulation is changing, and there are new laws on health and safety, and there's globalization, so products are coming in from overseas, and there are many aspects confronting the business, and it needs a strategy or a set of strategies to deal with these. But it must also link its strategies to its internal and external audits. It must look at what resources it's got, and it must see if it's capable of dealing with the challenges that are being posed. It must be as honest as possible to itself. It must look at its internal resources, its personnel, its capital base, its cash flow, it must look at everything, its stock, its production procedures. It must cover all aspects of the business and be honest and try to configure the resources in a way that will enable it to devise strategies which can take on the changing pattern of demand and market conditions that it faces. So it's essential that strategies are devised, and it's essential that the resources are available to enable those strategies to be implemented. It's pointless devising strategies if they can't be implemented. This stage, the strategic marketing planning stage, is structured around the marketing mix. It needs to take into account the market, the product, the price, the distribution and communications. It depends on what we mean by the marketing mix. It used to be the 4 Ps, price, product, place and promotion, but it was extended to many more Ps over time. Essentially what we're dealing with is trying to get a strategy together using variables that are under the control of the business. So the business can look at its promotional techniques. It can critically evaluate those techniques and refine the techniques as it chooses. It also can change its price. I mean, it's not as easy as perhaps it sounds. Changing price can be very dangerous, but at least technically the business can change the price. Whether it should or not is another question. It needs a lot of data, a lot of analysis, a lot of thinking before the prices are changed. A change in price may provoke retaliation by competitors, or it may alienate the customers. So there are many aspects relating to this, and probably a good starting point in terms of the determination of strategies is to start with the marketing mix, and to do that I suggest looking at one of the classes dedicated to marketing mix, which are to be found elsewhere in the course, I think in the course section of the course. So Strategic marketing planning. Well, we have the market audit, we have competitors, the market environment, customer needs, products and customers, the key products in the market, the degree of segmentation in the market size and the share of the market that the business has got. So it's looking at all of the various parts to the market audit, looking at the attributes of the market, looking at the issues associated with the market and doing an audit on these. So that's the market audit. These are some of the considerations that need to be looked at. The product audit, well, the product dimensions, that's not just the size and quantity, but also the product dimensions in terms of its popularity and how it's been received in the market. So it's important that the product is properly understood by the business. It belongs to the business, but the business must understand the product and its place in the market and what customers think about the product. But it also includes looking at competition. How many competitors are there? The competitors nowadays may be domestic. They may be in the same region or in the same country, but they may also be international. So it's difficult just to assess the competitors. And the product life cycle, whereabouts in the life cycle is the product? Is it in the mature section or is it in decline, or where is it exactly? And what other products are produced by the business? What's the product line? So it's important that the business has a clear picture related to this diagram and is able to answer the questions that are posed in the diagram. There's also a price audit, looking at the product pricing, different price levels and what the customers will pay, the perception of quality related to price, the price trends, what's happened to the price over the years or over the last year. So it's looking at all aspects of price to see how variations in price will be received in the market. What are the likely consequences of changing prices? And there must be a clear understanding of that. And again, the marketing section, the marketing department are crucial in trying to determine the answers to this question. There's also a distribution audit. What channels of distribution? Should it be by lorry or van or by train? Or if it's a service, could it be delivered via the internet? Or is it a service that people have to visit the customers? Or what is it? Look at the different channels of delivery. Rail, road, air, whatever it is. So there are different aspects. Concentration, for example, looking at how close the manufacturing plant, if it is manufacturing, is to the actual distribution channel to cut down costs. The distribution channel may be next door. So if it's a business that produces something that uses rail, it should be near a railway station or a rail depot. So it's easy to transport the goods and get them onto the train for distribution. So there are many issues that need to be considered there. And there's also a communications audit, looking at what media is going to be used to communicate with the customer and communicate with the wider market. What sorts of promotion are going to be used? Is it going to be so-called below the line, where it's word of mouth and it's low key, or is it very expensive, so-called above the line, where it's using television, radio and the national press and so on? What sort of media will be used? Will it be magazines and newspapers, or will it be posters, or door-to-door selling, or what will it be? What's the media? How is it going to be delivered? Now these issues are dealt with more specifically in marketing modules, so I'm not spending too much time on them. I would expect you to go to the marketing modules and look up classes related to these topics. Now, the marketing plan. Well, the marketing plan is a document containing the following. It's a summary of the organization's current position within the marketplace. It must start from there. It must start by informing the reader, albeit the readers are internal to the business, but it must start by informing the reader of the current position. What's happening right now? What's the position of the product in the market? What's the share, the market share? What price has been charged? What are the issues? What are the opportunities? And so it must describe the current position. It must look at the impact or the success of current strategies that are used in the market. It must talk about the current strategies and do it critically. It must deal with the issues that are current in terms of the performance of the product, how customers see it, what the competitors are doing, and so on. So again, it's bringing the readers up to speed, up to date with the current market position. It should also specify the marketing objectives. What are the marketing objectives? What's been agreed? What's the thinking of the business and of the senior management? What do they want in terms of the marketing strategy? What's both the short run and the long run requirements in terms of marketing objectives? Proposed marketing strategies. Well, new strategies in place to meet corporate missions and goals. As the corporate mission is changed, if it is changed, or as the direction of the business is modified, which usually businesses do over a long period of time. Businesses tend to veer off into new areas. Again, because of market changes, because people change, because societies change, and because demand changes. But as the businesses modify themselves and adjust to new situations, then marketing strategies must also be amended. So it's important that the marketing strategies reflect the business strategies. It's important that the marketing strategies, the people who formulate the marketing strategies, are aware of where the business wants to be. It would be bad if the marketing strategies was aiming at something other than achieving the business objectives. It's also important to try to work out the possible implications of new strategies. How will a new strategy affect the business? Will it lose customers? Will it alienate people? Or will it attract more people? Will it widen the appeal of the product, or will it portray itself as a confused business, not knowing what it's doing or where it's going? So it's absolutely vital that the business understands or tries to anticipate the outcomes of new strategies and tries to work out what's happening within the business because of the impact of new strategies. The marketing plan should propose marketing programs and action plans. Well, it's a marketing plan, so the reader would expect to see proposed programs and action plans. Perhaps a series of them, not just one. Perhaps alternatives, so the senior management can select what they consider to be the best one and discuss the range of options that have been set out, perhaps by the marketing section, the marketing department. But look at the various alternatives and then discuss them openly at senior management level and then decide which one is the one to follow, and understand clearly the risks, the opportunities, the threats. Do a pest and SWOT analysis on it as far as can be done, and have clarity amongst themselves that that is the best course of action, so they all subscribe to it and support it. It should also be, of course, the case that financial forecasts should be issued as far as possible based on whatever research has been done and whatever market knowledge there is. Try to make realistic estimates of likely future sales and changing market conditions and changes in costs associated with marketing and so on. So there should be some financial forecast, again, to help decision making. Now, implementation. Well, the final stage in the process of putting strategy into action is the implementation stage. This stage involves allocating resources, establishing roles and responsibilities. Implementation is doing. Implementation is setting the ball rolling. The plan has been devised, the plan has been agreed. It's now a question of delivering the plan. So it will require resources, it will require manpower, it will require time, it will require energy to enable the plan to be put into effect. And of course, part and parcel of that is that roles and responsibilities should be allocated to individuals so that there is control over the implementation and the implementation can be monitored. The implementation stage drives the new marketing strategies. Action plans are in place to ensure smooth running of operations. So the implementation stage itself provides information. It's not just implementing the plan, but it's also feeding back on issues as they arise. So it may be possible to amend the plan very slightly to accommodate unanticipated problems or unanticipated issues that suddenly appeared and confronted the business. So at the implementation stage, although everything is agreed and everything's set out, if something crops up at that stage, then a speedy result, a speedy reorientation or a speedy rethink of minor parts of the plan. The whole plan should not be kicked over at this stage, but perhaps some tweaking of the plan should take place to enable the implementation to run smoothly. So action plans are required. The timing of the particular functions, who's involved, what resources are required, how will it be delivered, what's the outcome, how will it be monitored. All of this should be written into the action plans, and they should make it clear to the senior management that the agreed plan is being implemented and how it's been implemented. The implementation stage details the organizational changes that will result in a successful marketing plan. Factors such as internal and external barriers and costs involved in the plan. So it's the implementation stage sets out the organizational changes that will be required, in fact, by the marketing plan. Even though the marketing plan was agreed by senior management and discussed in detail before implementation, as I said earlier, there is always the possibility that something new will appear as the implementation takes place, as it's been rolled out. So it's important that that is fed back so that the organization learns from the implementation itself, not just puts the plan into play, not just puts the plan into action, but also learns from the implementation so that any further changes to marketing plans can anticipate problems and issues at the implementation stage. These are some of the issues involved in the marketing planning process. They're important, and it's essential that a good overview of the marketing planning process is achieved, so that it fits in smoothly with strategy and with even the operations side of the business, because all of this fits together into one whole topic. When we do business courses, what we tend to do is to separate them out into modules, but in fact, in terms of the day-to-day running of a practical business, these would come as one set and have to be dealt with by senior management in that very complex form. But from our perspective, it's important that we understand the marketing planning process, and that's our task in this particular session. But that's all I'm going to do in this bit. There are some of the sources that were used in the preparation of this one, and I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.